So, I have much. I have an engineering degree, and one thing that I thought was success when I was younger was always wearing a suit and tie. And when I realized that fitness was my passion, and you can show up as is, it doesn't matter, what shape or what physical condition you are, you should be able to show up. When she talked about we fit together, the first thing that I thought about was my grandma Eloise. And you may ask, why would I think of my grandma Eloise? Oh, that's good. I didn't even tell you to do that. That's good. So my grandma Eloise, when we was younger, we didn't have Instagram. We didn't have, all these type of cell phones. We had puzzles. My grandma used to always give me puzzles of about 5,000 pieces. If you ever try to do a 5,000 piece puzzle, it doesn't matter how many pieces it are, you start with 2. You got to pick up 2 pieces. And what happens is you try to marry those 2 pieces together, and sometimes they don't fit. That doesn't mean that you're not gonna need them later. So what I would do, I had a little technique I would do. I would put all my edges on one side, put all my middle pieces in the middle side. I would still have to pick up 2 pieces. And before you know it, I've used all 5,000 pieces because we fit together. When she told me about that title, I thought about the word we. We takes away ego. There is no I in we. That's a collective, that's a unit. We always talk about what's being strong. Your finger is not stronger than your fist. So if we come together, me and Mike, I mention Mike a lot because we have a lot of conversations. When I first, moved here, he was the first person that I was introduced to by John right there, my brother right there. John told me, yo, you got to hook up with my man. He's an alpha. He made a mistake. I'm a Kappa. But we always talk about the things that we can do to unite, health and fitness. And when Susie talked about this program, the first person that she called after she talked to me was Mike. Mike met us. He had just got done teaching 12 classes. That's what he does, But he still met us because it was important to him. So we talk about the word we, that takes away ego. We talk about the word fit. Fit is not all about fitness. Fit is about, when we talk about entrepreneurship. Donnie, we just had a conversation, just met him. Yvonne was trying to get me to meet Donnie for probably about the last 3 years. We met today and the bond is like this. That's fitting together. He's speaking to my son, giving him advice. There's so many people in here that I talk about when we come together. We're going to fit because we're going to make this world better. That's what we really care about, is making it better, one person at a time. Now, together, we shouldn't have to do this alone. It doesn't matter what you do, you should not have to do this alone. There are people out here that will support whatever you want to do. Let me get that next slide there, Teresa. You should already got that for me. So I talk about entrepreneurship a lot. Like I said, I went to the Ohio University. I am a Bobcat. That's Athens, Ohio, first university in Ohio. Look it up. But anyways, I got an engineering degree, and what I realized was this. I didn't want to be an engineer. I worked for Lockheed Martin when I was in school, and I thought it would always get better when I got a full-time job. I moved to D.C. I was there. Everything was lovely. I was wearing my suit and tie, but I was hating life. I could not pass the pillow test. I didn't want to go to bed at night, and I didn't want to wake up in the morning because that wasn't my purpose or my passion. I was good at the work, but I had something else in me. Entrepreneur only means dreamer, a dreamer with execution. And we all have dreams. Do not let your dreams pass you by. Whatever you want to do, you should do it. Jumping off, I can't backflip. My cousin tried to teach me to backflip. He was a black belt in karate. I used to live in this place called Piccadilly in Canton, Ohio, and I landed on my nose. So I never tried to backflip again. I do have a big nose. But I can't front flip. But when you see this entrepreneur saying someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down, that because when he went up there or she went up there, they didn't have the answers. You don't have to have the answers to start things. You gotta make some mistakes. You gotta fail. You gotta get in love with failing. That's the problem with people. You don't get in love with failing. You kind of like, failing adverse is what you try to do. So I looked at everyone that came in here today, and everyone that came in here walked on 2 feet. Walking is the hardest thing that any of us have done collectively. So when you start to walk, what you do, you gotta learn to sit up first. You're gonna sit up because you're trying to get your abdominals right. So you're gonna sit up. Sit up takes you to crawling. That's what entrepreneurship, you're gonna crawl for a long time. And then when you crawl, you try to pull yourself up, and people forget this one, you gotta learn to fall. Falling is a part of the process. Karen, tell me falling ain't a part of the process. It's part of the process. And you can't be afraid to fall. But see, what you're doing that when you're learning to walk, you have people around you that encourage you. You got your mom, you got your dad, you got your cousins, you got whomever, brothers and sisters, they're older, and they're encouraging you. That's what you have to find in your network now, people that will encourage you. And that in turn, you can encourage them. That's the only way you're gonna make it. You can't be an island of one. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And don't compare yourself to the success that we see on Instagram and these likes and all these different things, because sometimes that's not reality. Reality is the falling and learning how to get back up every time. Let me go and get that back. There we go. So this is Bruce Lee. I don't know martial arts or anything, but I ran across this, and he talks about knowing is not enough. So we go out, we learn things. I have multiple degrees, so I know some things because I read things. But knowing is not enough. We must apply. So if Susie, when she came to me and she said, hey, I want to do this We Fit Together Gala, if she doesn't apply what she's trying to do, it's not enough. So you have to apply what you know. If not, you're doing things in vain is what you do. Willing is not enough. Really, Teresa? Really fired. Vanna White, can you get this anyway? So the willingness is what happens when you know that you have this information that you want to do, okay? So now you have to be willing to align with other people. You got to be willing to make mistakes, and you got to be willing to continue when you don't see that light. Daryl, tell me about that light. Now, when I talk about Daryl and being an entrepreneur, he may have jobs, but I tell you this right now, he hates them. He just does it just because he has to get to the next level. This is Mr. Entrepreneur. I learned so much from you in a little bit of time when you coming in, and he tries and he tries and he tries, and he has two beautiful daughters, and he tries to instill that into them. And if there's an award next time for an entrepreneur, Daryl needs to be voted for, okay? So go ahead and switch that up for me right there. So it was so I started inventing TFT in 2011. I think the year was 2009. This is before Shark Tank. I used to always watch Shark Tank with my son, and we would watch all these inventions. No one knows this story. I'm going to tell you this story. I was flown out to Silicon Valley in California. A friend of mine had called me and said they were having a competition for you to come to talk about your invention. So, it was two requirements. You had to have a doctor's degree, PhD, MD, DC, whatever, and you had to be an engineer. I think the reason why they do that is because a lot of architects, you gotta have an engineering degree. So I submitted, my information, my ideals, and I got selected. So I go out there, and they told us they had 10,000 applicants, and they only selected 10 out of 10,000. So I'm sitting there, and we're going around the room, and everyone's saying where they're from, and out of all 10, I was the only one that was not from an Ivy League school. So I'm sitting there, and I'm a little sweating. At that time, I had two inventions in my mind. Nothing was real at that time, but I had a food product that I was working on, and I had, Tension Fit Trainer. So I'm thinking here that I'm all geared up to talk about, my food product or talk about TFT. It wasn't even called TFT at that time. It was called Dr. Fit 365 something. But, it didn't even have a name. So when I got up there, they said, look, there's only one question that we want you to talk about, and it's not your invention. We want you to talk about the best product that's ever been invented in the world, and you cannot talk about your own product. So everyone comes up there, and they took us all out to different rooms. It was like the family feud. You couldn't see what everybody was talking about because you would try to take some of their answers. So they videotaped us. I think we had 7 minutes to talk about whatever it was, and then they brought us back in, and we saw everyone's recording. So naturally, people talked about the telephone. They talked about computer. They talked about airplanes. They talked about, you know, I couldn't even remember everything, but it was all these different things. I talked about one thing that was always dear to my heart, and his name was Gary Dow. Gary Dow made millions of dollars from a pet rock. If you do not think the ideal that you have is better than the pet rock, I can go outside right now and get rocks for free. He sold millions of rocks for $4 a piece. That's all I talked about. They asked me, why did I talk about the pet rock? The only thing I talked about was that because of the possibilities. You don't have to invent something so creative. You just have to have passion and purpose of what you believe in. Now think about if you tried to get an investor and they say, yo, what's your invention? The pet rock. They're all gonna walk out. They're all gonna walk out. He made millions. So whatever you think that is not important is very important. This is 1975. He didn't have social media. He didn't have likes. He didn't have videos. He didn't have any of that. He had purpose and passion. We fit together. The world would know. Got him, y'all.